Okay, let's resume. Yesterday, I think we people started with chapter number 4, which was risk assessment and internal control. I told you the scope of the chapter is basically this part. So there are two things to it. One is risk assessment, other is internal control. We are basically going reverse. So first what we are doing is internal control, and what is also left is risk assessment. As far as internal control is concerned, the scope was meaning and objectives, inherent limitations, ICQ, methods to evaluate ICS, benefits of evaluating ICS, internal audit and its objectives. This is what we had done till yesterday. Acha. What is left is applicability of internal audit, difference between internal and statutory auditor, and importance of ICS. Apart from that, as far as risk assessment is concerned, there are three things: risk assessment procedures, risk of material misstatements, in short ROMM, and lastly, audit risk and its components. Now, so obviously there are six things which are basically left for nothing but this chapter to get over. But we'll first nothing but revise the first six things that we people had done yesterday. Talking about nothing but meaning and objectives, I told you that internal audit is internal control is nothing but I hope realize a system which is designed, implemented and maintained by the management and TCWG. It is an end or it is a process? Process. Can I say it should go on and on? Correct. If you people remember, I told you it is like a plan. Basically, I hope realize it should be designed, implemented, maintained by the management, should go on and on. It should not come to an end. Have I told this? No. It is told by SA 315. So as per SA 315, ICS is not an end, but it is a process. Now, what are the objectives of nothing but ICS? Objectives are very simple: star. So ultimately, when I say star, I hope price first is safeguarding of the assets. Next, you will have to check whether the transactions have been properly recorded at correct amounts or not. FRF has been followed or not. So that is with respect to books of accounts and financial statements. Thereafter, A stands for authorization for every transaction should be there. No transaction should be unauthorized. And lastly, if at all there is any difference between recorded and actual, then that has to be rectified. All cool? Okay. Thereafter, we people had gone to this important question, comes for 6 to 8 marks, which was inherent limitations of internal control. As far as inherent is concerned, you already know inherent means unavoidable. Now, when you talk about inherent limitations of internal control, because of these inherent limitations, your system will provide absolute assurance or reasonable. Reasonable, correct. It means it will it show 100% assurance? No, it will always give you less than 100% assurance. To remember that particular answer, I gave you a key. Can you tell me the key? Help Modi ji in making India a corruption-free cashless nation. Word by word. Help stands for human error. Modi ji, misuse of authority. Acha, thereafter making manipulations by management. India, inadequate procedures, outdated. A, applicability. Acha, thereafter corruption free, cost. Thereafter cashless, collusion among employees. What is collusion? Coming together. Thereafter nation, no control. It is out of control. All cools? All cools. Thereafter, we people have gone to internal control questionnaire. This again comes in the examination as a big question for 8 to 10 marks. As far as your ICQ is concerned, think and answer. What is ICQ basically? Correct. Can I say it is a list of questions which is prepared by the auditor given to the management? Questions are asked with respect to the ICS to know whether it is efficient or whether it is inefficient. Because if it is efficient, auditor will go for sampling. If it is inefficient, auditor will go for 100% checking. So can I say, obviously, to decide his procedures, to decide his plan, it is necessary for the auditor to know the ICS, and for this purpose he will send a questionnaire to the management. So can I say ICQ is one of the methods to evaluate ICS. So since I want to know about the ICS, I will ask the management questions about ICS, which is known as an ICQ. Now, what can be the contents of ICQ? Contents of ICQ can be any. I hope you can ask questions with respect to debtors, creditors, cash, stock, purchase, sales, etc. Acha, will it have advantages, disadvantages? Yes. How to remember ICQ? 3 letters, 3 advantages, 3 disadvantages. Advantages are very simple. It helps you to basically identify the weaknesses which are there in the ICS. It helps in planning and it helps to decide the extent of checking. As far as disadvantages are concerned, I hope like some areas are overlooked. So ultimately, when I say overlooked, you people are not asking questions only. Acha, if you don't ask questions, are they going to give you answers? Acha. Thereafter, ultimately, I hope is the answers which you get either can be incorrect or they can be incomplete. And lastly, it is not applicable to small organizations. Perfect. Okay. Thereafter, I hope realize these two questions which are related but also important. Methods to evaluate ICS and benefits of evaluating ICS. When you talk about nothing but the methods to evaluate ICS, how many methods are there? Four. Perfect. First is narrative record, checklist, ICQ, and a flowchart. When you talk about narrative record, as the name suggests, basically the auditor or his staff will go to the client's premises. They will observe the ICS. When they observe the ICS, they will describe the ICS. They will make a record of that ICS. And thereafter, ultimately, I hope realize you people will read that record. And according to that record, you will decide whether the ICS is efficient or whether the ICS is inefficient. When you talk about narrative record, I hope realize it is normally beneficial in case of small businesses, not in case of large businesses. It is because in case of very large businesses, you people will have to make a very descriptive record. So that becomes very difficult for the auditor. And therefore, it is better for small businesses. By the way, I had told you that ICS is applicable only for large organizations. It is not applicable for small organizations. Reason being, small organization segregation of duties is not that possible. If you people appreciate, for a small organization, one person may doing various duties, whereas in a large organization there is always division of responsibilities, but that may not happen in case of small companies. I am not telling here that ultimately it should be done for small companies. Basically, I am telling that out of all the large companies, whichever is nothing but the lesser large, then that business you people should do narrative record. I hope as in large also there are categories, no, large, XL, double XL, triple XL. So basically then you people basically do this for nothing but large companies. Don't do it for XL, double XL, triple XL, because then for XL, double XL, triple XL, if you people do this narrative record, it will become very big. All cools? All cools. Thereafter, checklist. As the name suggests, checklist. I hope realize there'll be a checklist which ultimately the auditing staff or the auditor will have to follow. So there will be instructions which are written to check this, to check that, to check this, to check that. Thereafter, against this every instruction, there will be blank space. In that blank space, obviously the auditor or the auditing staff, they have to basically put nothing but ticks. I hope as more the ticks will indicate more the efficiency, more the crosses will indicate more the inefficiency. So that is basically known as a checklist. ICQ, you already know, list of questions prepared by auditor given to management with respect to ICS to know inefficient or efficient. And lastly, flowchart. Flowchart, I told you, it's a diagrammatical, or you can say a graphical format of nothing but the ICS. I hope it's the most concise way of nothing but knowing about the ICS compared to narrative record. Narrative record is very descriptive. So ultimately that is, I hope realize, not that concise, whereas flowchart is very concise. Just like we people had made that chart of auditor's report. So ultimately, I hope that is an entire flowchart of your entire auditor's report. Similarly, I hope realize the auditor can make a flowchart of the entire ICS, whether it is there or not there. So you get a bird's eye view of nothing but the complete ICS. All cool? Acha, doubt. These are the methods to evaluate ICS. Simple also. But can you tell me why to evaluate ICS? Will there be some benefits? Yes. What can be the benefits of evaluating ICS? Correct. Can I say there are various benefits? Firstly, obviously, you will come to know where the frauds and errors are located in the organization. Thereafter, you will come to know whether actually the system is in place and working properly or not. You will come to know whether management has discharged their function properly or not. You will come to know what is the area where the ICS is very weak. Example, stock. Similarly, you will come to know about nothing but safeguarding of assets, whether assets are properly safeguarded or not. You will come to know how reliable the records and the certificates of the management are. Once you know about the ICS, if you know that the ICS is weak, obviously the records also will become lesser reliable. Acha, whatever certificate you get from the management becomes lesser reliable, and you can give nothing but worthwhile suggestions to nothing but the management about the weaknesses. All cool? So basically we had done that from the textbook. If you remember now, there were two questions which were up and down. One was nothing but methods. Oops, see this part, the methods to evaluate ICS, all four, and thereafter the benefits of evaluating ICS. All cool? All cool. Thereafter, we had done the last question there, the big question, which was this one. Internal audit and its objectives. Now, as far as your internal audit function is concerned, I hope you realize I had told you this first time when I did the company audit. I told you in section 144 of the Companies Act, the statutory auditor cannot render internal audit services. It is because it is nothing but prohibited by Companies Act. Therefore, statutory auditor and internal auditor, both of them will be same or different? Different, correct. Can they be the same? No. By the way, can I do statutory audit of one company and internal audit of another company? That I can do. That there is no problem. But can I do both of the same company? No, that is not allowed. Now, when you talk about internal audit function, this function is defined by SA 610. Internal audit function is basically a check on the ICS. I said basically a check on the ICS. Is it only a check on the ICS? No. There are supporting functions also. So its objectives are more than ICS. Obviously, the supporting functions are basically objectives of ICS only. Maintaining books of accounts and records, whether they are proper or not. Safeguarding of the assets, whether they are properly kept or not. Thereafter, authorization of every transaction, it should not be unauthorized. Thereafter, laws and regulations, whether they are followed or not. So apart from nothing but checking of the ICS, there are supporting functions also. If you people have common sense, these functions are also of the ICS only. Acha. Thereafter, ultimately, I hope as I told you, internal auditor, he has to report to the management, and he will report to the management in the format of a letter, which is known as LOS. What is LOS? Letter of weaknesses and suggestions. Correct. So first you have to identify the weaknesses, thereafter give the suggestions to overcome the weaknesses. Who will give the loss to whom? Internal auditor will give a loss to the management. All cool? Acha. Thereafter, as far as your objectives are concerned, these were the objectives. If you remember, for this I gave you a nonsensical key, as you can see. Come on here, first tell me the key. All, love, aloo, paratha, achar, chutney, sauce, and dahi. Come on, now one by one. Firstly, all stands for, come on here, correct. Authority for purchase and sale of assets, correct. Love stands for liability. This will never be a problem for you to remember. Acha, liability should be incurred for legitimate business activities. What is legitimate? Legal business purpose. Okay. Thereafter, ALU stands for safeguarding of assets, correct. Thereafter, paratha, policies and practices. Achar, aim objective is to review ICS, give the laws to the management. Chutney, chutney channel. Channel, that is a medium or a way to give new ideas because you are giving suggestions to the management. Sauce is very special. So special investigation for the management. And accuracy and authenticity. And lastly, dahi, detection and prevention of frauds and errors. All cool? This is where we people had stopped, and this is where we people have to resume from then. If you have a look at the next one, what we have is applicability of internal audit. Right, next one. By the way, when I was discussing internal audit yesterday, I told you about the eligibility of internal auditor. Can you tell me what is the qualification of internal auditor? There is no specific eligibility. Good. Can I say anybody can become an internal auditor? Even you can become an internal auditor, but somebody should appoint you. However, I told you in real life, practical life, what happens is when you talk about internal auditors, at least who are appointed are chartered accountants, whether or not in practice. It means even if I don't have a COP, can I do internal audit? Yes. But if I don't have a COP, can I do statutory audit? No. Correct. Okay, fair enough. Now, as far as your applicability is concerned, your applicability of internal audit is not told by me. Your applicability of internal audit is told by section 138. As per section 138 of the Companies Act 2013, your internal audit is applicable to three companies. Now, which three companies? Firstly, listed companies, thereafter, unlisted public companies, and lastly, private limited companies. If you people appreciate, it is very similar to rotation. If you remember rotation that we had done, section 139.2, rotation was also applicable to three companies, listed, unlisted, and private. If you remember, listed was always compulsory, and for unlisted and private, if you people remember, pusk loan, 10, 50, 50, 50. You remember or what? Huh. Here also, when you people talk about nothing but listed company, for listed company, it is straight away compulsory. It means again there are conditions or no conditions? No conditions. But when it comes to unlisted and private, are there conditions? There are. Unlisted, there are 4 conditions. Private, there are 2 conditions. Now, which 4 conditions? Firstly, they are talking about paid up share capital. Then outstanding loans or borrowings, which you already know. Thereafter, turnover. And lastly, outstanding deposits. You already know about public deposits also. As far as nothing but your private limited company is concerned, here the middle two are there. Middle two is outstanding loans and turnover. Now, what are the amounts? Your paid up share capital here should be minimum 50 crores, or your outstanding loan should be minimum 100 crores, or your turnover should be minimum 200 crores, and outstanding deposit should be minimum 25 crores. All the amounts are in crores and the conditions are or conditions. It means you have to satisfy all the 4 or anyone. Anyone. I hope guys, even if you satisfy anyone, it is compulsory for that unlisted company to do internal audit. It means that particular company will do internal audit also, and they will have to appoint a statutory auditor also. On the other hand, these 2 conditions same to same are applicable here. The in-between conditions. Outstanding loan should be minimum 100 CR, or the turnover should be minimum 200 CR. I hope you followed. So basically, when you talk about internal audit covered by section 138, listed company, compulsory, unlisted public company, push loan, turnover, outstanding deposits, and private limited company, ultimately only outstanding loans and turnover. Here, in case of unlisted, push should be minimum 50, whereas ultimately loan 100, turnover should be maximum, which is 200. Outstanding deposits is half of push, which is 25. On the other hand, in between, you take the 2 conditions for private limited company, which is 100 and 200. Turnover always should be more maximum, so that is 200. All the amounts are in crores, and the conditions that you have to satisfy are all cools. Come to the textbooks. There is applicability of internal audit. See this part, point 10.2. Come there, page numbers I don't know. Utils. Page number 139 then, as per some reliable sources. Before even we go to the applicability, see this was eligibility. You remember? I hyperlize internal auditor may or may not be the employer. It's not necessary. Now see, as far as our applicability is concerned, listed company, thereafter unlisted company. Here there is no condition, so it is straight away compulsory. Unlisted company paid up capital 50 crore rupees or more, or turnover 200 crore rupees or more, or outstanding loans or borrowings is 100 crore rupees or more. Cancel the word exceeding. What do you mean by exceeding 100 crore rupees or more? Or more is exceeding only, no? What type of English is that? Oh, your English. Okay, okay. Or outstanding deposits are 25 crore rupees or more. And lastly, private company, the between 2 conditions, turnover 200 crore rupees or more, or outstanding loans or borrowings from banks or financial institutions 100 crore rupees or more. Cancel the word exceeding. This is basically the fourth question that we are doing on applicability. First question we did was rotation. Next, what we did was audit committee. Next, what we did was CARO. And now what we are doing is internal audit. Don't get confused in any of the applicabilities. I hope realize rotation though you will remember, yeah, it is three companies. So ultimately, I hope it's push clone 10, 50, 50, 50. Thereafter, as far as your audit committee is concerned, it is hum saath saath hai. So since it was hum saath saath was two only. So there are two companies only. I hope it is listed and unlisted. If you remember there, ultimately I told you that companies are only two, but conditions are three. So again, there listed was compulsory, unlisted was push clone turnover 10, 50 and 100. Thereafter, Karoto was full-fledged question for applicability. It was applicable to all the companies, including foreign companies. However, not applicable to six companies. If you remember, banking, insurance, Section 8, OPC, small company, and private companies. Private company, we had made a chart, if you remember. Holding and subsidiary of a public company, it is applicable because it's deemed to be public company. Only for other companies, there were three conditions, and thereafter, if all satisfied, not applicable, anyone not satisfied, applicable. And now we come to applicability of internal audit, which is again three companies. Which three companies? Listed, unlisted, and private. But you'll have to be careful here. There are four conditions and two conditions. Two conditions of between, first and last, don't take. If you wish to copy, now this is a better version of it. You can take this down. You all can. कर ली तू only in the morning also so fast. How come? What is the scope of internal audit? Now that only is the objective of internal audit.